Hey everyone, today is January 16th, 2024. Welcome again to a short video courtesy of investingsuccess.ca. In today's video, I want to talk to you about the concept of seasonality. And if you study commodity futures, you will know that there are periods of the calendar year when they are often generally in demand, therefore the price will go up. There will be times of the calendar year when they are generally not so much in demand and the price will go down. So this study of changes in price month in and month out is what is called seasonality. I'm going to take a look today at seasonality in the context of astrology. So now to begin, let's have a look at the gold futures first trade horoscope. Gold futures started trading for the first time in 1974, and it was actually the 31st of December, 1974. As you study the material in my financial astrology almanacs, you will notice that the first trade time for commodities varies. Stocks are a little bit different. When a stock does its IPO on the New York Stock Exchange, we know that that exchange opens at 9:30 a.m. sharp on the dot every day. So there's no question then when I go to make up the first trade horoscope for a stock. Commodities, a little bit different. Back in the day when they had the trading pits, when a lot of these commodities were first introduced to the world, there was no definitive start time for commodities at large. Coffee would start trading at a different time than soybeans, which would start trading at a different time than gold. You had to look at each individual exchange and each individual commodity to figure out when the actual start time was. And it has been my argument for many, many years now that these particular first trade dates for these commodities and the particular first trade time are no accident. So a good case in point is gold, December 31. You're at the end of the holiday Christmas season. People typically wouldn't be even at work on December 31. They'd be off, getting ready for New Year's celebrations in New York City or wherever they were. But yet, here we have COMEX introducing a futures contract for the very first time on December 31. Why? Take a look at the chart. You will see a pattern in this chart, and I call it a sawtooth or a dog tooth pattern. And take a look at the corner points that comprise the sawtooth pattern. Jupiter's at one corner, Saturn is at another apex point, Moon is at another, Mars is at another. That's why they picked December 31. No other reason. So going forward now, the people on the inside, the people with the knowledge, the people who understand astrology, they will be looking then and using events of Sun, Mars, Mercury, Moon, passing these key points, and that is how they're going to juice or jazz up the price, and they are going to very quickly leave the average investor behind. He's going to get frustrated. He's going to sell, probably at the bottom. But that is the secret hidden language of the people behind these commodity futures. Now, let me get back on track here. If you search around on the internet using a search term seasonality, you're going to find websites where people have posted or created seasonality type charts. So here's one that I found, and I just did a screenshot. I'm not going to subscribe to his material. It's very expensive. What this chart is showing is that in January, typically the price of gold will do well. There will be a little bit of a pullback early February, and then it goes again. And towards the end of February, it reaches a turning point. Price will decline a little bit into March, and then it goes again, and it makes a peak in April. After that peak, it kind of drifts along sideways, doesn't do much of anything until the latter part of July. Then it goes, and then it pulls back in the September time frame, and then it goes into late November, and it pulls back, and then it goes right into the end of the year, and it keeps going into January, February of the following year. So if you're going to be involved in gold, typically the time to be involved is early in the year and late in the year. This whole stretch, April, May, June, July, sell it and go away, and you're not going to miss too much. So that is the seasonal pattern for the gold futures. Now, my argument is that the people who do this seasonality stuff are missing two things. They're missing out on the astrology. Because here's what happens. This chart has been created using 20 years of data. So what the guy has done is he has taken price data on a day-by-day basis, and for all of the trading days in the year, he has said, okay, here was today's open, here was today's close. How much did it gain? What's the percentage gain, or what's the percentage loss? He's accumulated a data table like that every year for 20 years. So then he's going to take all of his January data, all of his February data, all of his March data, and he's going to average it out. So then when he plots everything, he's going to say on average, typically, based on 20 years of data, typically speaking, the price of gold is going to rally in January, have a little bit of a sharp pullback early February, and then rally again right into the end of February. And so that's how you basically have to interpret these charts. And I'm going to show you, as we go through this video, that these seasonality trends, they vary. They are not always accurate. Because remember, he's using 20 years of data. So if you have a few years in there where, for whatever reason, gold does not do what it's supposed to do, the remaining data will be strong enough to overpower that and on average obscure it. And so you don't want to make the mistake of saying, I absolutely have got to buy gold in the middle of March because I know that according to the chart, it's going to rally into the middle of April. Don't fall into that trap. There are investment advisors out there who also use these seasonality charts. And one of their famous tricks to generate more commission is to call the client and say, hey, Mr. Client, seasonality, we know that gold is going to really start to rock and roll starting early in July. It says so on the chart. So the unknowing client buys gold mining stocks or whatever the guy is peddling that day, and then it doesn't work. And the investment advisor can't explain why. He'll come up with all kinds of excuses. But really what's happening is there's something interfering with the seasonality patterns, and that something, I maintain, is astrology. So now we're going to move ahead here, and we're going to look at how astrology variously works in favor of these seasonal patterns and, from time to time, can derail them and upset the apple cart. So if you do follow commodities, or if you follow stocks that are based on commodities, agricultural stocks, for example, mining stocks, I devote a lot of time and space in the 2024 Almanac to commodity futures. I discuss everything from currencies to bonds to meats to metals, you name it, I've got it. I tell you what the astrological events are to look forward to in 2024. You can then take that material and use that to your advantage if you want to study seasonality. And always, never forget to follow the trend, stochastics, true strength indices, ergodic oscillators, Use them all because they tell you when the trend is changing. And ideally what you're looking for, if you are following the seasonality, you want to see the seasonality change as per the 20 years of data, but you want to see supporting evidence from the astrology and from the trend chart indicator. When everything starts working together, firing on all cylinders, then you can do some serious damage and make some money. So here's our seasonality chart again, and I'm going to take a look very quickly here at the month of January, and there should be a seasonal peak at the end of January, a sharp drawdown very quickly, and then a recovery rally into late February. There should be something that occurs in April, and it's going to drift after that. And then there should be something that gets going late July, which takes you right into September. So let's see if, in fact, the price action of gold in 2023 followed these seasonal patterns. If it did, great. I'm going to show you why. And if it didn't, I'm going to show you why as well. And it's all going to be through the lens, through the context of astrology. Okay, so if gold is supposed to rally into late January and then have a little turn down, why is it that the chart based on 20 years of data shows that turn down? Well, here's your answer. Late January of every year, Sun is going to be passing the 1974 natal ascendant point. And Sun will do this year after year after year without fail because the Sun takes exactly 1 year to go around the zodiac wheel. And so that pretty much explains why you're going to get this sharp reaction every year on the seasonality chart. Now, did we get a sharp little pullback at the end of January? Well, you definitely got a peak, and we were supposed to get a sharp little pullback, and then we were supposed to, according to that seasonality chart, we were supposed to rally for the rest of the month of February. Did we rally for the entire month of February? No, we went the other way. So something interfered with the typical seasonal pattern. Let's dig a little bit deeper and see what happened here. All right, we know that Sun passed the natal ascendant. That gave us our little interim peak in January, so we understand that. But what was out there? What was going on that derailed everything? Well, you've got Mars 180 degrees opposite to your natal Mars. You've got Moon practically on top of your natal Saturn. And then you got this guy here, Pluto. He's just hanging around the neighborhood. He's within 8 degrees of that ascendant, so he's within orb of being there. And Pluto can do some strange things if Pluto wants to. What else have we got? We've got Venus closing in on the natal Jupiter point. Most people think of Venus as being warm and loving and wonderful and expansive. Venus can be also cold-hearted and nasty. So you've got certainly the astrological event that occurs year in and year out, but in 2023, there were other factors that overruled Pluto, Venus, Mars opposite natal Mars, Sun coming into aspect with your natal Saturn. So that is why I maintain that you have to sort of get ahead of the curve a little bit, and you have to say to yourself, okay, we should get a little drawdown and then we should rally through February. Well, if you see these complicating factors, that's when you have to start watching your trend following indicators on your charts. And if you don't see that February rally starting to take shape, don't enter in on the trade, because it ain't going to take shape if you don't see it on the technical chart indicators, because the astrology says the energy has been compromised, and there's just too many other factors at work here. All right, now the seasonality chart says that you're going to typically reach a peak towards the latter part of February, and then you're going to decline into March. Let's have a look and see what happened. Did we have a decline towards the end of February, and then did that decline extend into March? No, no, it did not. We had the complete opposite. So what exactly is going on here? Again, you've got Pluto hanging around the neighborhood, being potentially disruptive. You've got Jupiter square the natal sun. You've also arguably got Venus square that natal sun. You've arguably got Moon square that natal moon. And so things kind of fell apart, got a little bit derailed here. So the one thing that did occur and will occur year in and year out is right here. Your sun will be coming into aspect with your 1974 natal Jupiter point. That's going to happen year in and year out. And if it happens for enough years where there are no other impeding factors, on average over 20 years of data, yeah, that's what's going to give you that pattern on the seasonality chart. But in years like 2023, where you had these other factors at work, it was enough to derail the typical seasonality patterns. Now, the seasonality chart shows that in coming into the middle of April, by the look of it, that's when you should see a peak, and then after that, you basically will decline. So let's see if that held any promise for us. A peak in April and then a decline. Finally, something's working here. There's your peak in April, and there's your decline. So, why did we get that? Why do we see that on the seasonality chart? Well, you have got Sun square your natal Sun. You've got your Sun 120 degrees to your natal Mars. And the fact that you've got Jupiter hanging around your Sun no doubt helped to keep everything intact. Now, we still have Pluto here, but Pluto's fickle. This time he didn't really do much of anything. He sat this one out. And so everything worked according to the seasonality pattern. So again, there's an example of you just cannot blindly follow this thing. In this case, in April, it did work, but it could have gone the other way on you as well. Now, the seasonality chart shows that coming into the latter part of July, you typically will get a move which will last you into September. So, latter part of July, you're going to get an up move that lasts you into September. No, didn't work. Didn't work. Let's have a closer look here. Okay, so what was happening in the latter part of July? Well, you've got Sun coming into aspect with natal moon, which was one of the points on that sawtooth dog tooth pattern in the natal chart. So that's going to happen year in and year out without fail. So if that happens for enough years, well, then the data on average over 20 years is going to show the pattern that we're seeing on the seasonality chart. But instead, it didn't work this year. Why? Well, here's our Pluto again. This time he decided he was going to interfere. This time you've got Saturn encroaching on your natal Jupiter point. Now it's going to take Saturn, a while to fully transit past this natal Jupiter point. So I wouldn't be shocked even in 2024 to see Jupiter upset the apple cart again. You have got, let me see here, you got Venus and Mercury, and they are basically square to the natal midheaven. So that was a circumstance that sort of derailed everything and upset the apple cart. So again, you'd be looking for that as you study the astrology chart going forward to see if it was in fact going to behave itself and follow the seasonality patterns. That's about it. So again, things at work here that derailed everything and that took you away from the typical seasonality patterns you were expecting. All right, now we're into 2024, and so as I pointed out in my most recent newsletter, I cautioned people that if they were sitting on any gold mining stocks, they might want to put a trailing stop underneath, because seasonally we should expect some kind of a peak and a drawdown in late February. So late February is still a little ways off, but we can look forward and look at the astrology. We can sort of anticipate what might happen. And here we go. February 24th. That's close enough. Late February. What have we got? Well, you've got Mars and Venus that will be coming by your natal ascendant. You've got Pluto still hanging around in the neighborhood. You've got Jupiter hanging around in the neighborhood. It's hard to say. This notion of declining starting in late February, it could, and these various other aspects could just add fuel to the fire. Or these various aspects could sort of calm the waters and mitigate any sort of a drawdown. We don't know. So how do you know what's going on? That is where you have to follow the chart. That is where you have to look at your trend following indicators. And if you see the trend starting to turn bearish, well, you know that everything is aligning and the seasonality pattern is going to fulfill itself with help from these various planets. If you see that come late February, the price of gold does not want to start declining, if the trend is going to remain, sideways to gradually up in the bullish camp, if you will, well, then you know that these planets are working in your favor. But just knowing that they're there, hanging around the neighborhood, that is reason enough to get a little bit suspicious, and that is reason enough for you to take extra caution, and that is reason enough for you to really, really study that trend following indicator on your charts, and do so on a weekly basis, a daily basis. You can even take it on an hourly basis. But just be careful that you don't blindly assume that the price of gold is going to fall in February into March. It may not. Okay, that was a long one. Apologies for that, but it's very important to understand that you cannot just blindly accept these seasonality charts that you find on the internet. And I'm actually thinking about writing a book about seasonality, where I tie it in with astrology and help people really, really understand it. Okay, so you can find me, of course, on investingsuccess.ca, astrology letter, cycles report. You can find me on Substack. Courses on Udemy. The 2024 Almanac is available in paperback and ebook format, as is my book, Follow the Trend. And yes, some very interesting characters from all over the galaxy are currently reading the Astrology Almanac. All right, I'm going to let you go. I do hope that what I said makes sense, and I do hope that I may have saved you from some upset stomach and some angst, for those of you that may have been tempted to just blindly follow a seasonality chart, because they work when they want to work, and if they don't work, it's astrology that's lurking in the shadows that's causing all of the problems. All right, you have a great day, and we will talk real soon.